Right, hello, 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 and welcome to our Techspressionism virtual salon, the very first of the new year of 2022. And hopefully an exciting new year for Techspressionism, but we're not quite sure of how everything's going to go because there's a lot of things up in the air right now. But hopefully we've got some good things planned. We tentatively do have our Southampton exhibition coming up, and there's other, Techspressionism projects that are popping up in other places that recently happened. I think there's one in India, led by Malavika, that was inspired by the collaboration project that yours truly got started. So there's that. So the agenda for today is that there is no real agenda for today. Just putting that out there. We normally have presenters lined up, but in the spirit of the new year, new format to start with, right? No, not actually. But we do have a couple of people that wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about what they're doing, or just share a little bit about what they've got going on in their lives and their craft. And then it's just going to be, a discussion, kind of like the original format that we used to have once upon a time back in, oh, wow, has it been that long? Yeah. Like the very first couple salons, like numbers 1 through 5 or so. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. We have a couple of new people I see in the chat, some unfamiliar names and faces. And yeah, so that being said, one of them is Robert here, who had a little bit to share, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
hey.
So welcome, Robert.
Thank
you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for including me in the Zoom meeting. I'm Robert DuGrenier. I'm a glass sculptor. I've been working in glass for over 47 years, and pretty traditional background in sort of design and craft. I'm definitely an object maker. I do a lot of large scale sculptural installations all over the world, and the latest one that I'm working with is with James Turrell on a big project that he has out in Arizona, which is it's called the Rodin Crater, and he's commissioned me to do some pieces as part of his installation that are sort of large slumped glass planets that emit light that will help people navigate around the crater when they're looking at various viewpoints to the universe out there. And hopefully the crater will be open. Well, it's supposed to have been open 10 years ago, but hopefully in another 2 or 3 years it will be open. So a big project I'm working on, and that project kind of really got me thinking about planets out there. And so I started creating a collection of these blown glass spheres that emit light from the inside, and they're unique objects, beautifully colored, and kind of almost meditative in some sense. And the idea came across, maybe I should be using these as a tool to make an NFT. And so I went ahead and I've created hundreds of these objects, which I've then photographed and then tweaked a little bit with color, taking out certain reflections I don't like, and with the thought and idea of minting these planets on a black background. As an object maker, going into a digital world, it's all new to me. And a friend had hooked me up with Colin, and he had some experience in that. And I'm just sort of kind of investigating and trying to learn about what the process is. And I am approaching a museum, or a museum has approached me to create this hanging sculpture for them as a permanent piece in one of their galleries. And my presentation to them is going to tie it in with the launch of these NFTs that I'm doing. So I envision the galleries with really large monitors with these sort of glass planets that are throughout the museum, which will then correlate to the actual piece that will be part of this hanging lighted sculpture, with hopes that sales that derive from the NFT, somehow you'll be able to turn your planet on or off at will anytime, from an iPhone or an app or whatever, to kind of connect you back to reality, but also have the piece as a permanent collection in the museum. So it's not just a digital NFT you have, it's interactive, and potentially, would have a 24/7 Canon monitoring it. So you could see activity of people around the world turning on and off their particular planet in the metaverse, if you want to call it. So it's kind of an out there project. I love to do large installations that involve things that change with time. Time has always been a really big element of my work. And it was interesting earlier today, Colin was talking about, how your group sort of started. And I was showing in New York City for 20 years with a group, and we were trying to clone a name, which was called Actual Art. It was the Actual Art Foundation down on Green and Broome Street. And it was a group of, I think, 13 artists. And we were working in mediums that changed over time. So I, as an artist, would create something that nature somehow would continue the process. And at the point that I visually liked what nature did to this piece, would stop it and bring it into the gallery. So I work a lot with living organisms. I had a big show there they actually got shut down by the city, which was a beehive that had these beautiful glass objects in it. And the bees over time would cover these glass forms with wax and honeycomb. And then one day, for some reason, the scaffolding went up in front of the building, and the bees were going out through the front window in a tube into the gallery and outside to collect pollen to create the sculpture. And they got confused and couldn't find their way back into the gallery. Somebody called animal control and shut the show down. And Jeannie Moss from CNN did a great piece of me moving the hive to a rooftop around the corner so the show could continue, which was kind of funny. And so, trying to bring a new sort of, expressionism or whatever. The gallery director unfortunately died, Valerie Shakespeare. After 9/11, she got a really rare stomach cancer and passed away from that. And so the gallery kind of shut down, and her husband, Terry Fugate Wilcox, who was another artist that was part of the group, was really sort of the forerunner in creating this actual art as something that was really unique. So that's sort of the thread that goes through my work, that I can do something and capture it. And it's really capturing a moment in time. And when the glass freezes and cools, it's done, but it happened at a specific time, and sort of an aesthetic, that I had, knowing that I wanted the piece to end at that point. So, the whole NFT minting thing and trying to bring it back to somewhat of a reality that is backed up with a physical object that helped create the NFT is really kind of fascinating to me. I don't know if it's really the direction that most of the digital artists out there that are working in just really creating an algorithm that's then creating the future NFTs. It doesn't really fit into that, but I think that there's a interesting direction that, sort of artists who have been in the traditional mediums now are being challenged or activated in this new world. And as I said earlier, I think the one fact is that, the resale value, and to be able to code in potential future sales on something that has been done in music, it's been done in writing, it's just never been done in the visual and sculptural arts. Any criticisms, any thoughts? Am I nuts? Should I go back to just glass blowing?
No. I mean, exploration and experimentation is kind of par for the course for artists, right? So, I
Absolutely.
mean, even if it doesn't work out, you tried something new, and maybe you'll
Yeah,
come back to it later and refine it again. You'll have another new thing.
exactly.
So I mean, it's just I think the project that you're working on or trying to get off the ground is exciting. But
Great. Well, that's good to know.
I
yeah,
think I think the interactive element is a really, really strong plus to the whole thing. Um, it does kind of set it apart to some degree. As a former game designer, I can relate to the power of interactivity. So I think that's a great way to integrate a traditional artist, if you will, into the digital medium. So yeah, kudos. That's a great idea.
Thanks.
I have
Yeah,
a
I
question.
agree. I think it's great. I like just what Michael was saying about joining the old with the new. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
or
I
not.
also was really interested to hear about this project because of the, you know, the combination of work in traditional media or physical media and NFTs. Like that's something that I've just been trying to figure out myself, you know, being that my original training was in painting, and then, you know, do I just make new work from scratch? Do I sort of revive work that exists? And actually, just like literally 20 minutes ago, I sold my first NFT that is the blockchain counterpart to a physical work on paper that was sold into a collection some time ago. So that was an experiment, you know, where I thought, well, you know, I see people minting photographs and all sorts of other images, not just straight computer drawings or glitch stuff, but, you know, photographs, straight analog photographs, a lot of them. And so that started me thinking, you know, why not, why would work that's been produced as a physical object be any less valid as an NFT? And I did it as an experiment. So, you know, I think it's interesting and to think about objectness and rarity. Like I've seen some things where I think it was a group of people. It might have even been a DAO, a distributed, what is it, distributed decentralized autonomous organization.
Yep.
They pulled money together and they bought a Banksy and photographed it and burned it and minted it as an NFT after they burned it. I think maybe they minted it as all like a grid of all the different little tile pieces. Each piece was an NFT, and I mean, you know, there's a couple ways I guess you could look at that. You could see it as, you know, straight a strategy towards monetization, you know, but you could also look at it as, well, wow, that's an interesting piece of conceptual / performance art questioning physicality and objectness, you know. It's both of those, I think, you know. It's interesting.
Colin, how does that work? Whereby your physical piece then becomes an NFT? Like the photograph you mentioned, the person would then acquire the photograph as well as the NFT rights? How would that work?
Well, I mean, there's really no transfer of rights inherent in an NFT sale unless it's
you
explicitly
yeah.
stated. Yeah. And there are platforms, I think, that you can actually write in, you know, some language that would transfer rights, although I you know, can't imagine why an artist would necessarily opt for that. And I've seen it done. There's an artist, I think his name is Trevor Jones, who is a painter in London that does work where the physical object sale is paired with the NFT sale. So you buy the NFT and you get the painting, and I guess he's, you know, just will ship it wherever the collector is. My thinking on that is that a lot of the people in crypto and the NFT space want to remain anonymous. They do not want, I don't know the actual names or locations of any of my collectors of my NFTs. And I would imagine that the reason they use a handle is they don't want anyone to know who they are or where they live. They don't want to be shipped anything physical. And most of the people that have bought my physical work could care less about NFTs, to be honest. are not interested in NFTs. So, you know,
Two
I
completely
thought,
different
well,
audiences.
the
Yeah.
work that's been sold already, I mean, I did not sell the rights of these works on paper to the hospital that bought them. You know, I own the rights. So I thought, well, why not create a digital like a blockchain or an on-chain counterpart to physical works, you know? And at this point, you know, the strategy that I'm sort of developing is to only mint work that's been sold. So that way it's not like cannibalizing the sale of physical work.
So there's no
It's
conflict then
it's an
between,
experiment.
there's no conflict between doing that, selling the physical work, and then minting an NFT of the work. Those are two separate transactions. And they're
Yeah, I
allowed.
mean, that's certainly within my right as an artist to do. You know, there's no transference of copyright in the sale of a physical work unless that's explicitly stated, like Artists' Rights Foundation, or is it Artists' Rights Society? Rauschenberg was a big proponent of, you know, artists retaining their intellectual property rights. You know, and I think that ultimately, like, I struggled with this philosophically for a while when this became an option. And does it cheapen the physical work? But, you know, ultimately what I decided was I like the work and it puts it out there in front of a different whole audience of eyeballs that would never see it if it was just published in some archive on my website. So just by making it available on a platform as an NFT, it's republishing the work and sort of leveraging the work. And, you know, I would be selective about it, you know what I mean? But that's something I'm trying to figure out as sort of like, you know, just a strategy for how this technology can best benefit me as an artist, you know, uh, having produced images for a number of years now, why start from scratch, you know?
Right. So
And
the NFT, you don't lose rights on that either. So you can continue to make prints, let's say, of that, or no?
yeah, you can. And, you know, I mean, I actually did a paper in grad school called Art and Memetics, talking about, you know, the like people talk about memes now, you know, internet memes and everything else. But memetics was really like created by this guy, Richard Dawkins, who's a scientist, as, you know, the sort of intellectual counterpart to genetics. How do ideas spread, you know? And it's based on a genetic model. And, you know, when you think about artwork that's famous, like the Mona Lisa, say, you know, it's because it's been reproduced so many times that it's just ubiquitous, you know, it's everywhere. People don't, you know, and so I feel like as an artist, do we want our work to be memorable and recognizable? Like, of course we do, right? So, you know, this is just another medium to be able to do that, I think, in a way. And, you know, it's something I think for artists to utilize, you know. I mean, the artists have always been like the plankton in the food chain of the art world, you know, and the whales are like sitting up top munching all the plankton, you know. So it's a way that I think artists can sort of leverage technology for themselves, you know.
I had an experience, Cynthia, where I sold the physical work after I had made it. First, it was an NFT. And I sent an image of it to a collector of mine, a woman who lives out west. And she said, oh, I have to have this one. This is the one I want. Print this one. So I had it printed on aluminum dye bond. And then about a week later, I started thinking, wait a minute, it's an NFT. So I had to sort of grapple with that. What had I done? But as Colin said, we are lowest on the food chain, and it is okay. I mean, she's not upset. I'm okay. If somebody buys the NFT, it's all good.
So what is the benefit or the motivation to buying an NFT?
That comes down to each individual collector, because right now, from what I've seen, there's like at least two primary camps with collectors of NFTs. There are those that are thinking of an NFT as an investment opportunity, where they see it as, oh, this is something that can appreciate in value that I can resell. And then there are those that are collecting them because they see the value of the piece as art and just want it as an art piece. And there are a couple of people that are like kind of in both camps a little bit, but it really just comes down to each individual collector, what they're looking for. And then it's also the case that like for some NFTs, depending on the project, they can confer all sorts of different things. Like there's some NFTs that allow you to be able to book a meeting with someone like a celebrity, and that's cooked into the NFT and there's just a lot of different things that are going on happening. It's a lot has changed in just the past year with the development and, you know, just adaptation or adoption of NFTs for artists. There's a lot of just experimentation still going on. Like going back to Robert, I don't think there's any other projects right now that are trying to do something that he wants to do like that. And I've been in the space for a minute. I haven't seen or heard about anything like what he's trying to do right now, which means there's just still so much more that can be done and so much more that can be, you know, experimented with.
So in your second case, an NFT is like a donation to a museum, but to an individual artist.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is someone likes your work or my work, and they say, you know, I'd like to support you, so I'm going to provide you with a certain amount of support. As a donor, I don't expect anything back, except perhaps entry into the museum or to the gallery.
Yeah.
And so, or association to say, yeah, I'm associated with some particular gallery.
Yeah.
That I support, not that I exhibit in. So I'm trying to understand this for myself, and it sounds like you either want to get something back as an investment, so that's a question about how a work might appreciate. The other thing is whether I just want to support that artist and then go from there.
Right. Oh, ST Rivera, do you have a question or comment? See your hand up.
Hi, I have a comment. I didn't know how to speak. It was my first time
Oh no, that's
being in
that's
this
fine.
Zoom.
You're fine.
Michael, in terms of the example you just gave, like let's say you have a museum or a gallery that has a membership, right? That gallery or museum can create an NFT that is like a tiered system. So let's say, you know, basic membership, there's one NFT that those members get. Then you have like another standard where there's maybe a different NFT associated with that. And with that comes maybe early access to certain exhibitions. And then another tier, which is, I don't know, an invitation to a gala or something like that. So that's how you can kind of pair donations with an NFT, just as one very quick example of that.
Yeah. So in a way, I mean, this is technology, communications technology, where a gallery in Chicago would like to provide those things just because you're close by. An NFT provides a convenient way if you're in London to be part of the same gallery.
Yeah, it is a global marketplace. So in a sense, yes. So like you can, so one of the things I was hearing a lot about, you know, big exhibitions that happen internationally is like the cost of shipping all of this artwork, right? Instead, you can have the NFT at an exhibition. The art doesn't have to be shipped to that location. Instead, whoever purchases the NFT then they own a kind of certificate of authenticity of that work. And then the work can be shipped directly to the consumer as opposed to shipping it to London or Paris or Hong Kong and then taking it to the next person. So,
and also have to worry
yeah.
about things like insurance claims in case something gets lost, which can
exactly.
be very, very troubling for some people, because
Now,
I've heard
right-
horror
right-
stories.
Yeah, no, right now, a number of different galleries are using, because of COVID and stuff, they don't require you to ship a piece of work. I mean, a photograph, a print or something like that. A photograph is nice. Benjamin's ideas about duplication and stuff. You can send the print, or you can send the file, and that goes online, and that gets printed at the local gallery, and they distribute that. The question in the background is the idea of the object, and the object being unique in some sense. Photographs are not unique because of that. They try to be, but here the NFT is really offering a way for distribution, well, not only donation support, but also distribution. It's not a unique way of distribution. Maybe it's a certified way of distribution. I don't know.
I think from just watching and being a part of it since about the end of 2019, I think even if it's the case that, you know, NFTs as we know them right now go out of fashion, what's happened with this space has kind of laid the groundwork or laid the seeds of ideas of, you know, what further can be done with art. Because it's like, maybe NFTs go the way of the dodo, like what they just stop being a thing. There's more than likely going to be something new that takes its place, that does something very similar or expands upon the idea that was established with NFTs. Like, I mean, take what we've done with like barcodes. Barcodes have expanded a lot. Like, we don't even necessarily even need barcodes anymore because there's other things that do the same thing but better. So I think that even if NFTs might go away, there's going to be something that capitalizes on what's been happening the past couple of years, actually, because NFTs aren't as new as people like to think. Like, they've been around for what? At least since 2017, at least. I think they might actually go back a little bit further than that, but they've been around for years. It's just that last year in January is when, you know, there's all this focus because of what happened with Beeple, because big price tag. Any kind of thing that happens where there's a large dollar sign associated with it, it gets everyone's attention. It's like, they sold what for how much? And that got everyone interested. Like, huh, there's money here. What's going on? What are we doing here? What can I learn? How can I participate? And that spurred this whole thing with artists coming on board, collectors coming on board, people that weren't even familiar with cryptocurrency coming on board now, because that initial thing kind of sparked their interest. Now, I know a lot of artists, that myself included, were interested because we were thinking about, or a lot of us were thinking about, ways to, you know, distribute and market our work that was digital, because the traditional setup didn't seem to be all that accommodating, which was, you know, a major part as to why this movement kind of got started. It's like just legitimizing the digital work and, you know, other sorts of technology-based artwork that people are producing, that galleries and museums aren't looking at, or weren't looking at before, but are now starting to accept, and just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit further to, you know, push further adoption. And I'm seeing things going on in the chat. Yeah, Rare Pepe is in 2016. And sorry, yeah, CryptoPunks were in 2017. Yeah, but it's right now, I'd say, and I said this last year, it's still the wild, wild west with NFTs right now. There's just so much going on. So many different things are happening. and it's all happening really fast, which makes it really scary for a lot of people. And it's going to be an interesting time. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to share? Or because I could probably keep talking and rambling because that's what I do. I know.
I think some of the very first work was it was this guy Kevin McCoy. I think he was with Postmasters Gallery actually, and he minted something with his wife back in 2014 actually. I'm like Googling. I was Googling around a little bit. The art center had to reschedule, but yeah, Kevin McCoy and Anil Dash. Supposedly the first known NFT was created by them called Quantum. Just interesting.
Take it even back. Apparently can go back as far back as 97 with Bowie bonds. Can't say I've ever heard of those before, but I'm not shocked.
And that was my comment. I'm just going to jump in. The Bowie bonds were a way for him to develop a financial or capitalization on his music catalog or intellectual property, which normally you couldn't capitalize on, or you couldn't authenticate or make what Walter Benjamin would refer to as the uniqueness of the artwork. But by selling shares or bonds or nowadays tokens on the blockchain, there was a way to capitalize on intellectual property. I think the thing that's been most interesting over the last year or two is for people that have strictly been in ethereal media, namely like video artists or digital photographers. There was never a way for galleries to capitalize or quote sell work unless there was like a value add of signed artwork or stills taken from the work, but that wasn't the actual work itself. But now you can actually authenticate, have a digital certificate of authenticity with an NFT. And by going back and looking at the stream of capitalization on intellectual property, you can go back to 97 with the Bowie bonds where they fluctuated with the market, just like Ethereum or Bitcoin or Dogecoin, whatever you happen to be in, fluctuates. So it's,
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting property of NFTs is the authentication. It's a signature, just like on the back of a work. And that we're talking about perhaps a limited edition. So you have 10 items of this, 10 copies of something, and you're using that to limit the copies. I can go on to the Tate and look at a particular copy of a work. I can say, oh yeah, I've got that. I put it on my screensaver, but it's of little value in terms of exchange. I can use it to give to someone else in exchange for some type of monetization. So perhaps that's, and it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting question is, how does an NFT, a blockchain piece, connect with or substitute for a signature on the back of a piece of work, or on the front of a piece of work for that matter, the bottom of the sculpture, whatever it is. I mean, your signature is your authentication on that piece of work. This is becoming a digital authentication.
Well, that was always a problem, particularly for video artists. I mean, people like Adam Schweller or these like old school video artists, you'd make the piece, but galleries didn't really know how to handle it in the traditional sense of artwork, buying, selling, and taking a commission on it. You really can't hang it on the wall. And if it was a videotape, it would deteriorate a lot faster than a painting would. And if somebody wanted a copy, they could just make one. But the NFT itself provides a, certificate of authenticity, which is even greater than just a piece of paper. It's, it's a decentralized piece of data. As opposed
in a way, it's centralized though too, which is an important part. So it's decentralized, it's convenient to get to, but because it's central, you can actually find the current value when associated with a particular piece. It's like an ISBN number in a way on a piece of literature. You know where it is. It's attached to that. And if you want to buy it, you can say, okay, I want this piece of work, this document, this book, and that's the ISBN number that I want. So this is Davonte had said, it's part of a marketplace, and it's maybe an important component to make art marketable in multiple copies across the world, or even to the moon, perhaps.
The nice thing is, unlike walking into Barnes and Noble and buying a copy of Catcher in the Rye, if you want to own the first edition, first print that came off the typewriter, in a sense, you could if there was an NFT for that. It provides, the uniqueness, which has always been the problem with art in the age of mechanical reproduction, is the uniqueness of its existence.
Within the limitation that you can trust that source.
Well,
forgeries, yeah, but a lot of people don't even think that. And if you take a look at the digital world, it's only as secure as it can be secured. And
well, that's true with anything. I mean,
well, exactly.
Yeah.
So people are calling this like some kind of panacea. It's not so.
No.
So just trying to bring it back to reality here.
So is that an analog or digital reality?
It's interesting to see that, musicians are starting to adopt NFTs, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, where the traditional model is that, many people own the same thing downloaded to their devices, so how does that work with something that is unique? I think a lot of it is more about maybe indie artists, where their supporters would fund the creation of a particular project or something like that. I know filmmakers are starting to use NFTs in that way too. It seems like filmmakers, I think it was a producer, used NFTs to sort of crowdfund a project that was still in early stage development, and then all the owners of the NFT would have some degree of equity in it, once it was produced as a movie.
So it almost sounds like it's a surrogate in some sense. This is David Bloom. In some sense, it's being used as a surrogate way to sell stock. And in that case, the SEC is, if they haven't, they're going to want, if it gets big enough, to step in and regulate it. The other thing I was thinking is, because someone just said, how do you verify this? Because you could still have digital fraud. Maybe there's some role for the Techspressionism group or for you, Colin, so an artist that wanted to issue one of these that people didn't know could become a member of the group or come to you for some type of verification. So this could become like a clearinghouse for verifying the artist's work and their legitimacy, and then you could make some money off of it.
Not interested.
Okay.
But I think that's the process that the NFT that BitChain provides. It's a digital key that takes so long to duplicate or to break that it's not worth it to say that you're someone else, to forge that key. The idea is that this has a key. The BitChain takes care of all this for you, and it just becomes time consuming to actually forge this. And we know that the paintings can be forged over a period of time with a certain development of skill, perhaps, but this takes a lot more time to do than that. So it's an interesting, again, it goes back to an interesting way to authenticate who you are and how you're connected with that. The question next in my mind is so how do you distribute a piece that you've connected your NFT with? Is this like sending out a piece of software that then is, you have to have a key to use, a key to look at, a key to observe? Does it diminish anything if you have a piece of sculpture which is three-dimensional as opposed to something on a two-dimensional screen? Do I really, do I want to have a picture of a sculpture, or would I like to have the sculpture here? That might be a way to differentiate some of the buyers here.
I think the authentication component, a lot of what collectors look for, I think, is buying from an artist who is verified on a platform that, is credible. That is, like, it's very easy for someone to impersonate someone else on, say, OpenSea. Like, it's a lot easier than on a platform where it's more tightly curated, because on either platform you can look at their I mean, if you're actually going to do your due diligence, you can look at their wallet address, you can look it up on Etherscan, see the transaction history, see other pieces the artist has minted, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Which isn't to say that people easily could get duped and not do those things and buy something that is minted by someone using someone else's name and their images. I'm sure it's happening every single day right now.
Buyer beware, I guess. Do your due diligence to make sure.
Yeah, so part of it is like the way that Twitter has a verified user badge, or Instagram has verified user badges, and most of the platforms offer or require that as well, for the artist to be verified by posting something to their social media, which some bot then goes and checks the link and makes sure it's coming from that address, and so on and so forth. So it verifies the identity of the user on the particular NFT platform. I know that Foundation does that, and I believe OpenSea does that as well, but of course an enterprising hacker would just set up cloned social media accounts using some other variation on the person's name. You know what I mean? Like, it never ends, really. It's sort of like cops and robbers, when it comes to, like, it's essentially like any other sort of hacking or phishing type scheme, where there's something that looks like it's something else and people are tricked into, transacting with it, There's an interesting thread I read on Twitter that actually the Brett Kinsella, the guy from Niftorian, reposted about securing your NFTs and how you can use like a hardware wallet, which would hold your private key to authenticate any transactions versus using a hot wallet like MetaMask or something like that. Then there's, all different levels of sort of how many degrees of precaution a user might take when getting involved in this stuff. It gets pretty deep, I think.
So an interesting thing is, suppose how does a collector, let's say, access your work if you've used an NFT to authenticate it?
Well, the NFT is the work, essentially, so some people might display it on, just, I think a lot of it is just sort of, for collectors, almost like pride of ownership. Like, they just know they have it. They could pull it up on a screen and say, I own this NFT by XYZ, and I think the commodity value of NFTs, on the one hand, someone might say, well, that's about as devoid of any sort of artistic merit as you can get, right? It's just commodification. But I mean, in the end, doesn't that benefit each one of us as an artist for artwork to have the ability to be commodified, so we can all make a living at it? You know what I mean? But the actual, how do they get the work? I think the work generally is what is on screen, although, you know, some NFTs, you know, also include what's called unlockable content, which might be a link or a download. You know, I recently looked into that because I was considering dropping some old digital drawings that I have EPS files for, which is like an early vector format predecessor to PDF format. And I was thinking, well, I could upload those somewhere and offer that as unlockable content so the collector could print the work, you know, at any scale, because those files are resolution independent. And I started looking into it, and really the sort of best practice right now is to upload the work to what's called IPFS, which is Interplanetary File System, which is, yes, that's the actual name of this thing that people have invented. And essentially it's a decentralized, you know, file format system. Most of the NFT platforms use that to store the data. So it's decentralized file storage, but there's a platform called Pinata that I was playing around with that is a pretty cool front end to IPFS that allows you to upload, and it basically gives you a certain amount of storage for free, and you can upload a bunch of files and go through the process, and it'll give you back a URL and a CID, which is like a key for that particular file that you've uploaded. And then honestly, I don't know how this actually gets funded, like who owns the servers that are then distributing the data. I would imagine it's something along the lines of the way LimeWire or these other peer-to-peer networks used to work, you know, where the data is just
Distributed.
shared. It's peer-to-peer, you know, in duplicate, but probably a lot of it is backed by, you know, the people involved in the Ethereum Foundation, things like that. I'm not exactly sure.
So again, but if I wanted to curate electronically a show, and I said, these are my own, this is what I really like to see. And I want to say that I have the originals or the selected editions of this particular work online and show people that. How do I go about doing that? How would I set up an online gallery with authenticated work?
So there is a website called oncyber.io. So if these pieces are already minted on the blockchain, you can go to OnCyber, connect your wallet, and you can put your pieces in that gallery. And there's a section where you can put notes, like comments. So you can write in the comments that those are available for purchase. And depending on the wallet, it does tie back to a place where one could purchase the NFT. So that's one solution. It's free to use. There are some galleries that you can pay for and have access to for more pieces, or if you want a different layout. Another free one is Mozilla Hubs. That one is a bit glitchy, but it's accessible to anyone. And then there's Kuntz Matrix, which I believe this organization is familiar with, and that's a paid service. And I think those are static images only. The beauty with OnCyber is that you can have moving images as well. And Mozilla Hubs, you can also have like three-dimensional sculpture in there.
How do you present the three-dimensional?
Sorry, I was just gonna say this was ST in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I can see on screen your name at least. But anyway, so when you view a sculpture, a three-dimensional work, how do I differentiate it from a video, let's say?
So it's the file format. So most people that I know who are doing three-dimensional works create a GLB file, which is outside of my scope. I'm not a 3D artist. But when that gets placed in some place like Mozilla Hubs, it shows up as a three-dimensional object.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
You can do moving, you can place video within Kunstmatrix, but it's fairly limited. And yeah, Kunstmatrix is really not made to integrate with NFTs or blockchain stuff. It was a little bit of a hack actually to put what we've done so far together. But there's definitely more sort of elegant solutions. There's also places like CryptoVoxels or Decentraland, which are true on-chain, virtual spaces within the quote-unquote metaverse. Although now apparently Mark Zuckerberg owns the metaverse, so we have to come up with some other cool name to call that thing that existed before Facebook appropriated it. But those are both. I know there are online galleries that people put NFTs in within both Decentraland and CryptoVoxels, and I think there's another one, Sandbox. I haven't really messed around with that one too much, but
Yeah, and with CryptoVoxels, you can if you connect your wallet, there are hundreds of spaces that are accessible for you to explore and play with. So you can build something in CryptoVoxels without necessarily needing to purchase land or parcel in CryptoVoxels. I like to always offer free solutions or solutions that are accessible to people who are just learning. And on Cyber in particular, because you connect your wallet, it's going to something that already exists on chain.
So I think one of the things that would be an interesting conversation to have, and maybe Techspressionism can be part of this, is that I think with NFTs, especially tied to visual art, whether it's movies or static or models or whatever, I think there's really a difference between people who are working natively in a digital environment, that's where their natural output is, versus artists who are not. And if you create physical objects, then is a photograph of the Mona Lisa the same as the Mona Lisa? Now, if there was only one photograph of the Mona Lisa, is it still as rare as the Mona Lisa? And my argument is that not everybody's creating digitally natively, or that's where their output goes. And I think as a conversation, when we're talking with collectors, when we're trying to, I think, educate ourselves and others as to what we're actually talking about, I think there's an illusion at times that an NFT is the artwork. For some people, that's probably exactly true. And other people, it's some sort of replica of artwork, or it's an adjunct, or it's an outgrowth. But if you have an original piece that you've created in another environment, is that the legitimate piece, and the NFTs is a different beast along the side with it? I'm not sure that I have an answer to that, but I do see that as a legitimate difference between natively digital art, where that's your output, where that's where you create and also where you output your creations, versus people who are straddling various medias. And I think we haven't had much chance to talk about that, because the hype has been about just the coolness of this, and like you said before, Colin, the big numbers that have been generated and things like that. So I guess for me, this is what's been perplexing in this whole discussion, is that there's some real basic differences here that we're kind of glossing over.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting conversation, and I think that this group in particular is very well suited to have that conversation, because it wasn't formulated around the topic of NFTs. You know,
No.
it's sort of prior to this becoming sort of like a mainstream, semi-mainstream sort of thing. And we all sort of came into it, or, you know, the people that have been involved with this project for a while have kind of come into it through this, you know, through the course of this going on. And, you know, like, I mean, I know for myself, like, there were like the works that I first minted were from digital drawings that I created back in the 90s that I then came back and animated and created audio to it to make them new works that were based on these drawings. But the original drawings, I originally called that series of work metagraphs, because I thought of the actual work as the file, like you could literally open up the file and read the code. And I never did this as a show. I still one day want to do it, but print it out on like old school tractor paper and hang the code for the piece next to the piece.
I did that.
Did you? I figured someone's done it already. But you know, but like, you know, I thought, well, like the actual work is the file. It's like, and then when I physicalize it into a print or stretch it up as a canvas, that to me is a derivative of the work. It's not the work, you know? Whereas in other circumstances, like these ones I just minted, like I threw India ink down on paper and then ran it through my printer, and that was the work. It's the physical singular piece on paper. And then the NFT is sort of the derivative. You know, I think it varies from circumstance to circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, for me, all my original files are all digital because I work digitally, but I create for physical prints. And I've had people ask me, well, can we get a smaller version of that? And I said, well, no, because that's my original is what I had. And if you want to commission me to do something new at a smaller size, I'm willing to do that. But my artwork is, well, it is a commodity, but it's not one that I can go just, I'm unwilling to go into Photoshop and just create a smaller digital file because you want a smaller version of the artwork. That's just me. You know, that's
sure.
That's kind
and
of
it dilutes the value of your work.
So
if you
for
do
me,
that.
like an NFT, if I were to create an NFT with, I don't know, whatever pixel size is, that doesn't feel like the artwork to me, because that's my digital file. That's what I've worked on. That's my process. And I'm unwilling to sell my process. But that's just me. And that's why for me, NFTs, I have to be thoughtful, kind of like what Robert's project is about, that it needs to encompass something more than what I do normally as a physical end product. And that's the part right now over this past year that I haven't come up with a good reason for me to do NFTs, because I haven't found something yet that I find interesting enough to incorporate something that goes beyond just a physical image. Because my physical images I want to have out in the world, in the physical world, the way I want them, the way I print them on the paper I want, the way I frame them, and all of that. That's, for me, that's what my artistry is about. And that's just personal. And I think that's why for me, this conversation is more than just about putting my artwork out in a digital format, because I could easily do that. I just choose not to, because I don't see that as the end product for me. And that's just where I'm coming from as an artist. And that's why I think this conversation is really important to have, because I think we are each approaching this in very different ways, and we can learn from each other in that way. And I think that's really, I think that's a good thing for us, which is why I value our salon meetings so much.
In response to what you say, I want to remind you that when I started selling my JPEGs on flash drives, I was encouraging people to show them in their homes on a small backlit screen, because there's a really important component of digital art that hasn't been mentioned in today that concerns me a lot, which is when you print, it completely changes the look of your work. where it's backlit and it's glowing and the colors shimmer, the minute you print it on a surface, you're going to lose the quality of light. And so you have to adjust your file. And I do print my work, but I don't make it to be printed. You know, if I make a let's say a note card out of my piece of art, it's just a signifier for what I actually would prefer you to have, which is the full size backlit work, either on a video screen of some kind, or like, that is what I produce. And I really, because I'm such an aesthete and looks are so important to what I do, I can't stand seeing it lose that shimmer, lose that depth, lose that magic of the backlit screen. And also with video work, there at least I have a guarantee that it's going to be what I wanted it to be, because I'm creating it on a screen for viewing on a screen. But it's really different from your perspective, and I appreciate what
and yours is completely valid. See, that's exactly where I'm coming from, is that, you know, or people that are, or, you know, people creating audio work that they tie in a visual. I mean, there's such a cool, just wide range of artistry here, and the whole NFT thing is very interesting, but it's not like one size fits all. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how, whether it is something I could utilize or not. I haven't come to that conclusion yet, but I get where you're coming from, because and that's why my home studio, my monitor is set for digital print, because exactly of that backlit illumination. I have to mitigate that so that what I'm seeing, I know is going to be valid when I print it. And that takes, you know, that takes a lot of time to get to the right thing. So I totally get where you're coming from, Renata.
And I think that, you know, it's really interesting, because working in glass and glass being so luminous from the inside, I've found that the NFTs that I'm creating represent that luminosity that I can't get any other way. And it's absolutely spectacular. So it's such a beautiful bond, a beautiful interpretation of the glass sculptures that I'm making, because these things are interlit just like glass is. And that's what excited me about this medium. If they looked horrible and like a flat piece of paper, I wouldn't have gone there.
Right, exactly. No, that's great.
Yeah, you can use aesthetic effects that will make the printed image seem somewhat more luminous. And also, Renata, on the screen, they would be seeing probably a lower resolution and lose some detail. So they would gain and lose something.
It depends, I guess, on what kind of a screen they have, doesn't it?
Which that's a whole other part of the conversation too. What the screen is that you're using, because an iPad is very different than like a big LCD monitor or a big 4K monitor even. So you're just going to get a wildly different experience sometimes, just depending on the screen.
Yeah.
But same thing with prints. You're going to get a wildly different experience based off of the material that you print on or the settings that you use.
But we have control over the print if we're selling a print, whereas if we sell a chip, we don't have control over how it's going to be viewed. You know, that doesn't that disturb you somewhat?
I've actually been selling digital work with Raspberry Pi and with small displays, so that it comes in a package, and that's the way I can control how it looks. Yeah. That's twice.
That's what Clive Holden insists on too. He'll sell the video screen in a frame as part of the work, and ideally that would be how I would do it too. It would add a cost to the work, but if the collector was a serious collector, they'd probably be willing to go that way.
No, Infinite Objects is like a solution specifically for that. I know Patrick said he sold an NFT piece in the show that he just curated as an infinite object, which is like, essentially a small screen that can get preloaded with still or time-based work. And I think a lot of NFT artists are using those as a way to sort of provide a physical, counterpart to the blockchain.
Yeah, I don't really like the way they look.
Yeah,
I prefer
they're
the
sort of-
really
yeah.
computery sort of looking thing. Yeah.
I think they look good, but I don't know about how much you can put on them, because I tried uploading an MP4 and they didn't have the space. So I guess I have to go back and look again. They were being used at CADAF at the big digital art fair in Paris in the spring.
I think that's one of those things too, is like, because we're having these conversations right now, I'm pretty sure that that technology is going to develop a bit more. Like somebody at some point is going to get the bright idea to be like, hey, we really need to service these artists that work digitally a little bit better with displaying their artwork in a outside of a computer environment. And I think there's a couple of companies that they've tried creating like whole LCD monitors that are just dedicated to displaying NFTs and digital artwork. Some of them are like really expensive. I think I saw one that was like $800 just for.
I've done one that was $5,000.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing.
It does. It does.
You can load up the MP4 and it just loops,
Mhm.
and it looks amazing. It was totally worth the money.
Wow.
But yeah,
you gotta get into that business.
it's still very new. So that first mover bonus, if you're there at the start, who knows like what kind of a lion's share of what happens you'll get. But it's
Much like becoming a clearinghouse for NFTs, building display systems for galleries and museums is not what I want to do with my life.
And there's platforms that are like, I think sort of almost like subscription services where I don't know if it's NFTs or just straight digital media that then the artist license, and then a collector might have a screen on the wall where it like rotates the art. I forget the name of the platform.
Well, I'm
there's a bunch of them.
I'm on Sedition Art,
That's it.
and I was with them right around 2013, and I was sort of, my collectors all had to wrap their heads around the fact that they were suddenly getting a digital vault, and the work was locked inside the vault. But then somebody hacked their certificates of authenticity, which kind of, to me, made it not so valid anymore. At least with NFTs on the blockchain, there's a better way of checking. There's, not like, but Sedition is still going. They've got Damien Hirst, they've got Yoko Ono, they've got practically everybody with work on there now.
Are
But
they
I'm just
using like blockchain to authenticate the work now, or it's still like sort of
No,
just a
it's still,
proprietary?
you buy this little thing and you get a vault, and then you can show it on your computer screen at home or as a screensaver on your computer, basically. Yeah. But I think I know what you mean. There are some other services that allow people to stream art in their home.
One of the things I noted, everybody worries about their piece going out, but no one mentions they'd like to see their piece in a particular environment. Galleries provide that particular environment, but would you not sell a piece to a collector who lives in a cave, I guess, just because they don't have the right environment to view your particular art?
I would sell my piece to whomever enjoys it.
yeah.
If they're in a cave and they can see it on whatever device they have access
Maybe they
to,
didn't want
then,
us,
Well, even if they can't see it, if it connects with someone and it's out there and available for purchase, then my personal feeling about it doesn't matter to me. And it's the same thing with physical work. If I have a piece hanging somewhere and someone wants to buy it because they love it, then I'm happy about that. It doesn't, the environment in which it, and where it's shown is less important to me. I have had work shown in physical galleries, metaverse galleries, pop-up galleries that had digital screens showing the NFTs. Any way for someone to interact with it, view it, love it, that's all I really care about. Makes me happy that someone is appreciating it. Even happier if they decide to spend something on it.
It's all about sharing.
I get that, but I'd like to add a caveat to that. I would not be like, I don't care too much about the environment where my art might end up, but I definitely would feel some kind of way if my art ended up in like certain contexts, like if it was shown next to certain things that are just like, really, you're gonna put that next to it, like, just no. Well, okay, it's in your house now, but still, why?
I totally get that, especially with how many profile picture projects there are. You know, if someone had my work next to, I don't know, just any PFP that I'm not a fan of, I get that. But
Yeah,
you know,
but at the end of the day, it's whatever. It's just
right.
It just kind of happens. I was like, yeah, I'm glad you enjoy this. I'm not glad where it's ended up next to, but that's fine. It's out of my hands.
Yeah, but at the same time, to pretend to be as naive or as precious as the Max von Sydow character in Hannah and Her Sisters, where the guy wants to put it over his couch and he has a fit. It's like, as an artist, 9 times out of 10, the collectors and you don't meet until maybe there's a dinner, and that's only after they've bought a few pieces. No, I mean, if someone's buying your work, you're like, oh my God, I can eat this month. Or I don't have to like take that silly side gig. You know, you're just glad to sell it. You know?
Yep.
So.
We
It's
don't have the
interesting, too.
control over it.
You know, that just the owner of the work, by purchasing an NFT, that doesn't mean the rest of the world can't see it. You know, people could just go view that Beeple everyday piece or CryptoPunk number 4675 or whatever it is, just as easily as the owner can pull it up and view it wherever, you know, wherever it was minted. I mean, I guess I'm not sure if you buy an NFT, if that gives you the ability to burn it. Does anyone know the answer to that question?
You can. It just doesn't feel good. It hasn't happened to me, but I know people that's happened to.
I'm
so
going to buy your art
to
burn it. Yeah.
Well, I actually burned stuff that I minted on Rarible before I really like knew what I wanted to do, and then I was like, oh, like I want to get rid of that, you know, and I burned it, but it's still there, you know. Like I don't know if it just didn't work or if that they didn't remove it from like OpenSea, you know, even though I burned it off of the platform. So I'm not sure if I didn't do it right or if it doesn't really actually remove.
It's Schrodinger's art
it.
now.
Right?
That's great.
It simultaneously exists and does not exist at the same time.
Along that vein, I mean, any burned NFT is Schrodinger's NFT, right?
Yeah,
because when you burn something, it doesn't actually go away. It just goes to a wallet, a burn wallet. So you can still see it if you have access to that wallet.
It's a very interesting philosophical thought process with that too. Because you can also ask, like, does it have value as a burned object at that point too, or no?
But does it become performance art?
Yeah, like, does it take on a whole new context by being burned?
I mean, we saw that. I think it was middle of last year, or a little bit late last year, with Taylor What the Fuck that burned an ape, and then there was a whole movement of killing the
Oh,
apes.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do. I do. Yeah, that fits right into that discussion.
I think
But-
about, I,
Oh,
as
no,
I
go
said,
ahead.
I just happened to watch something about the Burning Man Festival, and there's art that's burned in there as part of the experience.
We're having NFT Burning Man. That'd be crazy, but it could happen.
I read an article about Ethereum being burned by like people who are big holders of Ethereum. I guess I would imagine that's in an effort to reduce supply, but it
Yeah.
just seems really strange.
It does. A lot of weird, but interesting, still weird things going on in the space.
I mean, one thing I'm not clear about with Ethereum is that when ETH 2.0 actually, becomes the what Ethereum is, like, does that basically eliminate minting, and thus does that cap supply at that point? Because I think a lot of it that will basically, like, shifting to proof of stake versus proof of work will accomplish, the main thing is that it'll
Eliminate gas
supposedly,
fees.
The energy usage will be 1/1000th of what it is now to process Ethereum transactions, which will get all the environmental people sort of a little more friendly with Ethereum. Although I feel that that whole line of thinking is like propaganda from centralized banking personally, because no one complains about
Totally.
I mean, how many GPU cycles does, video gaming or streaming video take up? And does anyone really discuss the carbon footprint of Netflix or tell people to turn that
Right.
off? Like, probably not, I
Right.
just feel like there's an agenda behind that whole conversation that people aren't really, it's easy to hop on the bandwagon of it's bad for the environment, but, these are computers that are running. When you think about all the computers that are constantly running, doing other things all the time that are data intensive, processor heavy things like gaming, you know what I mean?
Or even all
it's never
those
been
machines
questioned.
that are just using energy constantly for no apparent reason because they've got a screwed up process, because that happens sometimes where they'll end up
Right.
running GPU cycles because something happened in the background and a process got messed up, and now your GPU is functioning at 100% doing nothing, but it's functioning at 100%. So that happens a lot, just like hardware faults as a result of software.
Mhm. And then like every trade that happens is a transaction. So you think about, and like I read some statistic, I mean, who's really to know who, how can you know what statistics to actually believe at this point? When it says like one NFT takes X amount of energy to burn equivalent to whatever, like, I mean, but it was about, what percentage of blockchain transactions are NFT related versus general trading. And it was a very, very small fraction, because when you really think about it, it's writing a record to a decentralized database. It's not like churning, like you think about the amount of trades that happen probably every second, like thousands and thousands and thousands, all the day trader crypto people with automated trading and bots and everything. I mean, I don't know. Just seems a little far-fetched to blame it all on the artists and NFTs, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's become one of those things where at this point, and I've seen this a lot now, the whole idea or concept behind NFTs and them being a bad thing, it is very trendy to hate on it. Like, it is the in thing to do to hate on it. Like, I've seen this happen in video games, like the video game community right now. A lot of people in the video game are throwing a fit about companies potentially releasing NFTs. They're like, oh, we're gonna boycott this game if they release an NFT for it. And it's like, it's not that serious. Like, it's Like
Is it because of the energy usage or because like the model of ownership is different?
that's the thing. You ask most of these people why they're doing this. They will say, a lot of them probably say something along the lines of the environmental thing. But if you try to press them about that idea, you get short circuits because they don't actually really know what actually is being affected or what the argument actually is. They just heard NFTs are bad for the environment, and they're running with it. They're not doing any further thought, any further research into like what that claim actually even means. But so many communities outside of, just art and collectibles and the metaverse stuff that, in industries that are trying to get into the NFTs, they're getting backlash and getting, even some of them even getting boycott over stuff that they don't even quite understand.
I'm actually looking into this at the moment, the environmental impacts of NFTs.
Mhm.
And I've seen some really great videos that argue that it's all bullshit. And I've just basically started looking, but correct me if I'm wrong, but there are no peer-reviewed papers on the environmental impact of NFTs.
At this, from what I
Couldn't find
understand,
any.
there's one thing that somebody did. It was either Stanford or MIT, one of them. They did a report on Bitcoin, not necessarily Ethereum, but it was about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the
yeah.
go-to thing people are going to. But
Yeah.
even with that report, what came out, it was just like, it's inconclusive about how much an individual transaction is actually producing.
And apparently everyone is citing a guy that wrote an article on Medium. Just a guy.
Yeah.
Not a scientist, no one that actually knows what they're,
it's a mess.
not an expert. So
it's a mess. and I get wanting to care about the environment. I care about the environment. When I first learned about NFTs and that part of the discussion, it made me halt a little bit. I was like, maybe I try to find something that's more eco-friendly or environmentally friendly. But even then, I wasn't basing that decision off of actual research that had been shown, because there isn't any.
Right. It's
just
an easy
one
button to press.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, jury's still out on this. Maybe I should hold up. And I was in that boat for a while. Like, that was actually probably the motivating reason why I didn't dive in as hard early on, because it's like I just didn't know. And I think there's a lot of people, they're still in that mode too, because we don't know. Like, there hasn't been a whole lot of research because this is still very new. The popularity surging is really new. We're very much in undocumented territory. So
like, you don't see anybody saying like people shouldn't trade cryptocurrency because it's bad for the environment, where like 95% of the on-chain transactions come from trading. I mean, it's not from people minting NFTs, like, think about it. Like, it's not plausible to think that, the artists are to blame. You know what I mean? Like, really, and there would be an outcry if it was really scientifically valid against all cryptocurrency, against Coinbase. Coinbase going public, if they're the biggest perpetrator of environmental, impact in the country, a publicly traded company, there would be an outcry, but it really isn't happening. And probably the reason it isn't happening is because it's propaganda to some degree. I mean, certainly, I think that Ethereum is not extremely efficient, and things like Polygon are being built on top of it, so there'll be faster transactions and other stuff. But the people behind Ethereum are still trying to make it better and make it, I mean, it was conceived of as something totally different than Bitcoin, as just from the get-go as a computational platform, not a currency. So I don't know. I feel like it's tough to argue with things when people are like, there's no intrinsic value in cryptocurrency or NFTs. It's like, okay, that's like
Right.
saying there's no intrinsic value in rocks or trees or any other, arbitrary thing, like without really providing substantiated reasoning why that might be someone's opinion, and I think, there's plenty of valid applications for general blockchain technology, certainly, I mean, it just seems strange, but the whole phenomenon is weird, and the whole idea of like there being an anonymous Satoshi Nakamoto behind everything is weird,
Well, and Ethereum isn't the only blockchain, right? That you
That's
can mint an
true.
NFT. So I think part of it is education. And if you do feel some type of way about Ethereum and proof of work, then you mentioned, Colin, Polygon, but there's also Tezos.
Tezos. Yep, that's where I went to. Like that was
That's where I am now.
yeah, that was my like
Yeah.
I'm not sure what about Ethereum, but Tezos is building itself as something that's supposed to be more environmentally friendly. Like that, like literally on Twitter, when Hinkek Nunk was first getting started, they were a big part of and like one other influencer, I can't remember his name right now, but they were building themselves as clean NFTs. Like that was the thing, that like hashtag clean NFT. That is the thing that was happening, or is still happening. I'm not entirely sure, but I haven't seen it in a minute.
I think
But
they've moved away from that language, the
yeah,
clean NFT or eco NFT.
yeah. But I
But
remember,
Tezos has grown. It's grown like so fast in the past
yeah,
year. I mean, it was Hicketnunk and Calumet, but now you have object.com, you have FX hash, I think is the latest one. I mean, Object has grown
it
very, very
grew
quick.
out of Hickek Nunk.
Yes,
'Cause,
exactly.
Like Hickek Nunk started, and then somebody was like I was saying earlier, somebody creates an idea, a little seed of something, and then somebody takes it and just like, I'm gonna grow it. And that's kind of how Object came to be. Like it was an initial idea that got expanded upon and refined very quickly, like in the span of months, because it wasn't a full year that came up. It was probably maybe 6 or 7 months that happened.
It was born out of the inability to do auctions on Hicketnunk.
Yeah.
And then when the big exploit happened in July, it like it like skyrocketed after that.
Yep.
Mhm.
But and that again goes to just how fast things happen. Like there's a lot of very motivated, passionate people in this space, artists included, not just it's artists, developers, and all sorts of other people. They're very passionate. They're trying to do all sorts of new things constantly. That's why things are going so quickly. But to be an artist during this time period, and just to be not even in the space, but like being like adjacent to it and just being aware that it's going on, it's exciting to look at. It really is. And just wondering where it's going to go, because I don't even think anyone has any clear ideas of what this is even going to look like next year. Like we didn't know that things were going to look like this year. I didn't know things were going to look like this in 2019 when I first learned about NFTs. And it's going to look completely different in another year or so. It could even be gone. I don't know. I really don't know.
Hopefully we'll all still be here.
Yeah, hopefully we'll still be here. But yeah, it's just so fast. So fast. Yeah, I think most of our conversations today has been about NFTs and art, NFTs in art. I know, Michael, earlier you said you had something that you were potentially wanting to share for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Is that still something you want to do?
Well, I'm not sure. It feels like I would break the flow of where this whole day has gone. So maybe another time. I'm not sure. Unless this conversation is completely talked out, which it doesn't sound like it probably is.
I mean, it's one of those things because every time we get talking about NFTs and art, it just goes, and it's like a nonstop conversation.
Well, it's crazy how you can go on Twitter, like now with Twitter Spaces, and like
Mhm.
literally around the clock, there's like, and Clubhouse, there's just
24/7.
multiple conversations of dozens and dozens of people all talking about NFTs. I mean, it's like really
Literally 24/7.
shocking in a way.
Like I've talked to people that they've said they've gone to sleep in a Twitter space and woken up still in the Twitter space going like 8 hours later. I'm like, that is crazy. But
I wanted to say, it kind of reminds me about all these fertilized eggs that was a big hullabaloo. I don't know what, in the 80s or 90s, something. And everybody was talking about it. What do you do with these eggs? Is it a potential human being or not? Or hell no, it's just a fertilized egg. No way is it a potential human being. And that finally died down. But I think the philosophers and the people in ethics are still talking about that. But they probably haven't come to any conclusion. It's just going to be talked about forever and ever.
as a former philosophy major in college, yes, I can guarantee that it is still being talked about because it was part of my coursework, actually. That discussion about, personhood and when a human actually becomes a human, or whether that's different or not from a person. That kind of stuff is still being talked about and discussed. In those circles anyway. Your average person, probably not. But yeah, no, they're still being thought about, and it's the case that right now there's no clear answers. We still don't have clear answers, and that's kind of one of the joys of philosophy for me anyway. So everything's just so open-ended, like who knows where you'll actually end up. But on the journey of trying to figure out answers, even though like you might not get there, you might discover all sorts of other things. Like that's how we got math and science, actually. It was people thinking about these other things. And then in the course of doing that, math and science kind of developed as a result of those discussions, because they were trying to figure out answers to certain things. And, they end up developing systems to help them figure it out. And it's always fun. It's always a good time.
What I was going to tell you is that artists are not just another pretty face.
Yes. Though we do have several pretty faces in here, I will say that. I see you, Sue.
On a pragmatic note, is there anyone in here that does want to present for the next 2 weeks from now? So I could, I slacked over the break and didn't line anyone up, but it ended up being a good conversation.
Hi,
Michael, did you have any interest?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, but Colin, if there's some that haven't presented at all or something, put priority to that, but sure, I'd be happy to.
I saw somebody, one of the newcomers, I think, light up.
Yeah, my name is Lily Kostriva. I would like to present the next time too.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, we will get you in.
Do you have a site or some link that you could paste in the chat?
Okay, let me do it right now.
That way I can add you to the artist index as well. Robert, would you like to get added to the artist index?
Yeah, please.
Okay, cool. There'll be another Vermonter in there with me now.
Is it Vermontian?
It is a Vermonter. I've officially traded in my New York plates and my license, and I am no longer a New Yorker.
Unlike me, I'm a masshole from Massachusetts. So once a masshole in Vermont, always a masshole. I have a son who's the son of a masshole. Maybe his kid might be a Vermonter.
Yeah, to the people I've met so far, I'm definitely an imposter. Like, yeah, all right. Come back in 20 years.
I've been here more than 20 years. It still doesn't work that way.
Yep.
How often do you have artists present work here?
Fairly consistently, actually. This is the first meeting in a very long time, actually, where it's just kind of been a free form discussion. Normally, the case is that we'll have like before we had normally 2 presenters present every meeting, and they'd have their presentation, then there'd be a Q&A after presentation, and then the next presenter would go, there'd be a Q&A, and then if there was any time left over, then it would be kind of look like this. So it's each presentation, normally we like for them to run between like 30 to 45 minutes ish. And then there'll be 2. Yeah. So and that's a number that it took us a minute to kind of get a handle over, because when we first started doing like artist presentations, they were like 5 minutes, and we would just like shotgun them. It was like, okay, so yeah, this person, they'll go for 5 minutes, and this person will go for 5 minutes, and a lot of people are like, that's not enough time. So it just kind of gradually kept going up to the point where it's like, yeah, no, you can have a half-hour presentation, it's fine. And people seem to enjoy that format a little bit better than the shorter form one. But
okay, then I have a collaborator that I work with. I like to have us present if that is still available to put our names in. Cool.
Yeah, you can put your name in the hat.
Absolutely.
Or proverbial hat, so to speak.
Where is this proverbial hat that I can put our names in?
Actually,
there is a Google
I set up a
form.
Yeah, I'll paste a link to that. It's right on it's on the Salon page, where, let's see.
I might be able to find it first. Let's see.
Thank you.
But how's your first time here being in our salon?
This has been a lot of fun. I hope I didn't talk too much.
Oh no,
this has been great.
Good.
I got it.
You got it? Okay. So you beat me to it by like a second.
Yeah, so, and then I'm happy to add you, ST, to the artist index as well. If you want. The form has like, some information that you can fill in, and then the artist index is basically just sort of a geographical list of people who want to be added to the artist index, basically. So the sort of motto at this point is, you're a Techspressionist when you say you are, and it's sort of based on the idea of self-identification, and yeah, I mean, I'll paste a link to this movement page too that Anne's
I've read the
oh, you read all the propaganda?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I read the manifesto and I was like, oh, these sound like my people.
Cool. How did you find out about the salon?
I follow Giovanna's son on Clubhouse, and we've been in a few rooms together, and I saw her post the exhibition in Brooklyn, I believe it was. And then I found your Instagram page and followed the rabbit hole to the Zoom call.
Nice. Well, it's like, fairly free form situation here, I mean, I'm coming to like thinking about it as a social sculpture along the line of Joseph Boy's, sort of more so than any other sort of model, because that's what feels most comfortable to me personally. I like the idea of it being sort of a participatory piece of art that we could all sort of like contribute whatever we want to, or versus sort of a pre-existing model of a collective or organization or whatever, what have you, you know. Maybe that's a little idealistic, but at least it keeps me moving in one direction versus the other. But always happy to, you know, have people jump in if anyone wants to, you know, take the reins on any particular direction. Renat has been doing an awesome job as Instagram curator for a while now, and Skojo's been hooking it up on Pinterest and connecting with, you know, Niftorian and everything else like that, which is, it seems like that's starting to happen, and a lot of good, exciting stuff. And of course, Davo, who is the eternal face of our salons, forever indebted to Davo. When you said you're getting a full-time day job, I was like, oh no, what are we gonna do?
I specifically chose the career and role that I have because I knew they were going to be a little bit more flexible with scheduling so that I could still come to these. So it's all part of the plan.
Nice.
Actually, again, I'm still actually, I am kind of working at the moment still. So it's all good.
Nice.
But yeah, I would not abandon you all. You are my extended family, so to speak. So I'm not going to go anywhere anytime soon if I can help it anyway.
Buy some Davo masks or.
I see. I wanted to get like a 3D printer and start actually like making masks. Like that is the thing that I want to do because I love masks. And I was like, there's so many cool designs and varieties that I could do. But that'll be a project for another time. Because I have more capital now, I can actually probably get a 3D printer so I can actually enact on this crazy idea that I have. My wife is thrilled, by the way.
Yes, we heard the laughter.
Yep. We totally have space. We can make space. Anyway.
Wouldn't it be easier to set up a real engine 3D render and projection map your face onto whoever was sitting there?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Gears are spinning, I see it.
Oh, so on one other just point of business is that I posted this on the Facebook group. I was going to send out an email blast, but I just never got around to it. So the Techspressionism 2021 show has been archived now. It's still at techspressionism.com/TS2021. And the show that Malavika put together in India is on the homepage now. And that is like sort of I put it up as like a partner exhibition in that, you know, she's in the index and brought some of the ideas from Techspression, this project, over to that show. And, you know, is sort of introduced the idea of Techspressionism to school children in India, who then were creating this collaborative show, which was really cool. And, you know, I think, yeah, it's really cool to see. And I think one idea that I really like is like what Sahar and Nagin started up with the Techspressionism.ir in Iran, and having this you know, node that would be Iranian artists in the index, you know, working with technology, and they started that off as a an Instagram account, you know. And I think that node model might be a way that artists could group together in their various local areas to put together physical exhibitions or what have you. But I know there was something in New York City called The Thing a while back, that was a bunch of sort of technology artists in the 90s that did a similar type thing with with nodes and in various countries.
I've been featuring some of the work from the collaborative art project in India on both Instagram stories and the Instagram account. And while I have your attention, I just want to remind you that we have a Twitter account, which is under the handle @Techspressions. And that Twitter account has a banner that can be filled with artwork by any of us. All you need to do is to format your work in a 1:3, sorry, I should say 3:1 proportion. So 1,500 pixels across, 500 pixels down, and send the file through DM on Twitter to @Techspressions.
And Jan, yeah, I failed to mention Jan Swinburne
Yeah,
is
I'm
our
sorry.
Twitter lead, and she's doing an awesome job. And the people just stepping up and taking over some of these social accounts has really helped me, you know, in terms of allowing this thing to be more self-sustaining and also bringing different perspectives, you know, to those accounts. And I just looked actually, I'll paste it in here. So it looks like it must have been today we hit 30,000 posts on Instagram with the hashtag.
That's right.
30,035 posts as of today. So it must have, I looked yesterday and it was still under 30. So I must have just hit that, which is a nice milestone.
I memorialized it with a story.
Oh, did you? I
Yeah.
haven't been on today.
Yeah.
Nice.
I check every day the number. And we need you, Colin. You're a very important person, which is why stepping up and helping is always a good thing.
I appreciate it. It's been a tough thing where, you know, I feel like there's an infinite number of areas I could focus my attention, you know, even just within the scope of this project. So sometimes it feels a little bit overwhelming, but I got I got revitalized when I heard that hopefully there'll be some definitive information about the Southampton show and dates and all that stuff. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, because that's been a source of anxiety for me. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's really interesting. And Giovanna, really appreciate you putting together the Brooklyn exhibition, the pop-up show, you know. And I think that,
You know, I really like to do that again. I try to coordinate. There's a place on Upper West Side. It's called Blockchain Center. I went to their event. They have a lot of like a Bitcoin event, and it's on the ground floor. It's also I still try to do more art event, even just pop up. But I think it's some really decent people. There's a very sincere art collector, NFT art collectors. They were there. And they all really really young, like 20, it's all like a 20 something. And they just try to just want to learn more, and they really appreciate that they can see all type of art. So I'll try to do more this year.
do you know if the thing that you put together with your colleagues, is that's happening tomorrow night, is that an open Zoom event, or is that just for the people that Lucia is bringing in?
You know what? I have no clue, because okay, so Lucia, she's the founder of TAAC, Taiwanese American Artists Council. So she want to do a webinar to show all these entrepreneurs, the people, the artists, about NFTs, and she want me find like artists and also startup founders who can just talk about it. And it was like 2 hours. Did you write something? Is that something? Okay. So so I feel like 2 hours is really long. I think it's long. And she said there's about like 40 people. It seems like something. And the other thing is that because the Lucia is a very serious person. So well, it's not like you know, like the way we present our art, and it's really casual artist talk. So and also those people, whoever want to join this webinar, they're all like a very serious people, but they do have some potential art collectors, but they are very conservative, those type. So just let you know.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like something that I should put out through the Techspressionism channels?
Yeah,
or
you
whatever?
can talk about Techspressionism, Ethereum, or even.
I mean, the
you
link
want
to
visual
the
art, just welcome visual art, because for me, I feel like, because I've been working with the TAAC for the past 8 years. I'm like a volunteer to do all type of things. The thing is, they actually they never collect any of my art and never really do anything, but I just like to contribute. Even they have a lot of really rich people, super rich. They have those collector, they go to freeze, they go to armory show, very easy to spend $1 million, but they never really collect any of my art, and they never like to contact me at all. Not until I start to really selling a lot of NFT and blockchain, because they want to know. They kind of try to figure out what's going on because everyone is talking about. So that's it.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if it was like something where I should post a link to attend, like on our Facebook group, for instance, or anything else like that, or if it was more like they just wanted it to
internal.
be.
Yes. It is an internal that is
okay.
all like a TAAC.
It's for the members of the
Yeah,
organization.
like
Okay, gotcha.
all their gas entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires.
Only by invitation. Only by invitation. So
By invitation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. I think it's about that time.
All right. Well, it was definitely interesting conversation today, for sure. You know.
Yeah.
No visuals. That was
no. Yeah,
I think almost a first, probably.
Yeah, no screen sharing to speak of. I mean, I could go ahead and share my screen. Just because, I'm not going to do that. But thank you everyone that has stuck around. I know there's 19 of you left. I'm looking at probably over half of you right now. And it's been a pleasure moderating for you, and just being I guess a genuinely helpful person sometimes. And keeping things on the rails and all that good stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate your attendance. I appreciate your contributions to the discussion. And, just again, for making these meetings as great as they tend to be. We haven't really had any bad ones that I can remember. And I might be jinxing myself. But no, I don't think we have.
Yeah. By the way, there's something I like to make announcement. So there is a friend of mine. She just found this very interesting AI audio app. This actually you can create all type of a voice, and you can speak your own language, and it can transform into different type of a voice, male, female, robot, or very attractive or very sad or whatever. So she looked for some collaborative work with artists, which I think is really interesting, that you can create something that makes with your own creative voice. So because she want to find some work artists can collaborate. So if you guys have any interest, I'm going to post on Discord. Because I think the AI, artificial intelligence voice and audio, that'll be the next. You can tell because audio these days that get more attention. So that's why even Twitter, they try to do it like a Clubhouse. Now they have a Twitter space. So everybody just keep talking. And the other thing is that I think that this is a great idea, because you can you can promote yourself like with your voice, but you don't need to use your original voice. You can change your voice with a different type of thing. So maybe later on, even you can use in the metaverse or whatever. So it's just like something I think is an interesting word to project that has some potential. So I'll copy and paste those information to Discord.
All right. Well, I think that will be it for this meeting then. I'll go ahead and close things out. Thank you for joining. Thank you for making these meetings great. And I will see you in 2 weeks, I hope.
All right. Thanks
All
again,
right.
Davo.
No problem. All right. And we are
Bye.
signing off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's a wrap.